I'm going to omit the online participants and agents.
Thanks, Monica. Okay. For which one? Okay, so it's 6:31. Sorry. What?
You are now live.
Welcome to this evening's Committee of Adjustment meeting. Members of the public, applicants, agents, and staff may be participating this evening either in person or virtually via Zoom. For those attending via Zoom, please note that it is our standard practice for members of the public to have their cameras off and microphones muted until it is time for that member to speak. Township staff can assist with muting microphones, so if you require assistance, please use the chat function and ask staff for help. I'm also pleased to advise that this is being broadcast live on the Township YouTube channel, where a recording of this meeting will be available. Note that the Township does not have the ability to edit the live stream or recorded version of the meeting. Public meetings have been called and notice circulated in accordance with the Planning Act with respect to applications for minor variance and/or consent. The purpose of public meetings are to inform and provide the public with the opportunity to ask questions and to express views with respect to the applications. The format of the public meeting is as follows. Township staff will explain the purpose of the application and report all correspondence received. Next, the applicant will present any further relevant information or their agent. Next, the public will be permitted to ask questions and express views on the proposal, and then the public portion of the meeting will be closed. And then the members of the committee will be given the opportunity to ask questions for clarification of the application. After all comments have been received, the committee will consider the application with due regard to the presentations and views expressed this evening. The committee will then do one of three things: approve the application, deny the application, or defer the application pending receipt of additional information. Specified persons who have provided oral submissions or written objections but disagree with the committee's decision on an application may appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal as entitled under the Planning Act. The deadline for an appeal of consent application is 20 days within the giving of the notice, and for minor variances within 20 days of the decision date. When commenting on an application, please give your full name and address for the minutes. And please note that the names and addresses of those individuals who speak at this meeting will appear within the meeting minutes, which are public documents. If you wish to receive a copy of decision, please leave your name and address with the township staff. Do any members have disclosure of pecuniary interest in the meeting? No? Okay. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes, please. That's really small. Okay, moved by member Bossy, seconded by member Kish, that the minutes of the May 16th, 2023 Committee of Adjustment meeting be adopted as printed and distributed. All those in favor?
For the meeting minutes, when they're in the large package, the proposal for the Denise Atkinson is not correct, but if you click on the link, they're correct. So we'll just need to make sure we use the appropriate one.
Yeah, no, we corrected it, but I don't think they actually updated the agenda. Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. The adjourned application, D1. Could staff present that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Our first application this evening is consent application B1822, Bosseini, Menoke, and 267425 Ontario, Inc. Please be advised that the minor variance A3222, which was previously concurrently heard with this application in January, has since been withdrawn. These lands are located at 3739 Wood Avenue in the settlement area of West Shore and MHBC Planning is the agent on file. Here we have a key map of the subject property. You can see it outlined in red. It is in the southern half of the West Shore settlement area, Lake Couchiching to the east, Amigo Drive and Wood Avenue, the lands are located at the end of Wood Avenue along Menoke Beach Road. The 2022 aerial imagery, the lands are outlined here in red, along with some other features identified being the vacant residential lands to the north, and some residential and shoreline residential to the south and east of the subject property. Additionally, identified here in this purple box is the existing water and wastewater infrastructure that is located within the municipal road allowance. And this red dashed line is to indicate the limits of the maintenance or the maintained portion of Wood Avenue. So just in summary of the application, as mentioned, the lands are located within the settlement area of West Shore. The application initially went to the committee for consideration earlier this year in January, and the application was deferred based on concerns from staff and the public. Since that time, the applicant has presented staff with new information, which confirmed that the lands known as 3739 Wood Avenue are comprised of 2 whole lots on a plan of subdivision, being lots 69 and 70. As explained within the staff report, whole lots on a plan of subdivision, even when they're held in common ownership, when they're abutting and held in common ownership, they will always remain separately conveyable, unless there has been a deeming bylaw registered on title, which would allow them to merge into one parcel. The applicant did provide a title search with the application, which identified that there is no deeming bylaw registered on title. So therefore, lots 69 and 70 both are currently separately conveyable, and each have their own development rights today as individual lots. So given that, the applicant has revised the proposal to now only propose the reconfiguration of the 2 lots. Initially, the proposal included or would result in 3 residential lots. Since that time, through this now revised proposal, I would only reconfigure the lands to allow for more appropriate and desirable access onto Wood Avenue. Additionally, it was identified on the severance sketch that the lands are waterfront lots, meaning they abut the high water mark of Lake Couchiching. So with that, it means that their frontage is measured on the side that abuts the water body. So therefore, there is no requirement for a minor variance to recognize reduced frontages as a result of this application. And that's why the minor variance application has been withdrawn. This sketch here just kind of explains what the applicants are doing. So the lands identified in green are lot 70. The lands identified in purple are lot 69. This red triangle here is what is proposed to be severed from lot 69 and merged with lot 70. These gray boxes here indicate the proposed driveways, and those maintenance limits along Wood Avenue are kind of in this location. So the driveway would still be entering onto a portion of the maintained portion of Wood Avenue. These items identified here within the road allowance is that public works infrastructure. We will get into some comments from Public Works, but they do appreciate seeing these entrances further south along the road just to limit any impacts to that infrastructure. And I've just identified for the committee here where the frontage would be measured. As these 2 lots are existing, they both exceed the minimum requirements for frontage under the zoning bylaw. And as no changes are proposed to the frontage through this application, no variances are required. I did also just want to identify for the committee that both the existing lots as they are today and should the severance be approved and the reconfiguration go through, the lots would continue to exceed the minimum required lot areas as well. This is just some site photos of the subject property. So you can see the existing dwelling located here, which does kind of straddle the boundary between lot 69 and 70 as it is today. But essentially the existing entrance would generally be in the same location to access the southern lot. And then the new entrance would be in this area which Public Works has identified there are no concerns with. So just in summary of the staff report, township planning staff do generally concur with the opinions of Mr. Theodore and Mr. Steiku with overall policy direction on encouraging growth and development within settlement areas. This application would allow for the redevelopment with increased densities through infill on underutilized lands within the service settlement area of West Shore. The reconfiguration of the lands is preferred as it does limit those impacts to that public works infrastructure that is within the road allowance. Just to go over the comments that were received as a result of the circulation on this application, Public Works stated no concerns as it is intended to keep the entrance as far away from that infrastructure as possible. They did identify that a service connection agreement would be required to have the service laterals installed to lot 69. And a minimum separation is proposed for the driveways, and Public Works anticipates providing some additional comments on some technical matters as part of the building permit and entrance permit applications. Building, Fire and Emergency Services, and the clerk all had no objections to the revised application. Enbridge Gas also did not object to the application, however, reserved the right to amend any development conditions. And advise that it is the responsibility of the applicant to verify that the existing gas service does not encroach on more than one property when subdividing or severing lands. Finally, Severn Sound Environmental Association reviewed the application as it is located within the intake protection zone of the West Shore Municipal Drinking Water System. Basically, they advised that they had no concerns and no additional approvals were required under the South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe Source Protection Plan. So just in closing, the Planning and Development Department has no objections to the provisional approval of the application subject to the recommended conditions. Those conditions are pretty standard for this type of development, just being that a reference plan be prepared to describe the lands that would be severed and merged with the adjacent parcel. The in preparation draft deeds be provided for review. The applicant would need to ensure that the severed lands merge with and are not separately conveyable from lot 70. And that the owner's solicitor shall undertake all necessary steps to ensure that the lands merge. Just a bit of a heads up that a deeming bylaw may be required to facilitate that. The owner's solicitor also needs to provide an undertaking to describe the steps that they would take to ensure that the merge happens. The applicant would need to obtain an entrance permit onto Wood Avenue if required by Public Works, as well as the water and sewer connection agreement to install those service laterals. Taxes paid in full, and that any fees and disbursements incurred by the township would be paid for by the applicant, and that they have 2 years to satisfy the conditions. So that concludes my presentation on this application. I also have a motion for the committee should they want to hear it. And I did want to just let the chair know that the applicant's agent is in attendance and has a presentation for committee this evening as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So can the agent, share their screen and start their presentation?
Sure, just give me 1 second. Can everyone see my screen? Oh.
There, now we can.
Okay, so thank you very much for that that presentation. That pretty much covered most of the items that I was going to talk about. So I will go through this presentation fairly quickly. My name is Stefan Steiku, as was mentioned, and I'm the planning consultant representing the owner of 3739 Wood Avenue with respect to the consent to sever application. So as I go through this presentation quickly, just please be advised that given the agreed upon interpretation of the site's zoning standards as it relates to the revised proposal and the resulting exemption from the requirement to proceed with a minor variance application, the focus of this presentation will be specific to the lot fabric and will not go into detail regarding the build form of the proposed buildings. So as was already mentioned, I don't think I need to go into detail here. The site or the severed sites have frontage along Lake Couchiching to the east, and they are surrounded by an open space use to the north and residential uses to the south and west. The proposal has been revised to reestablish the historic plan of subdivision property and convey a portion of lot 69 or part 2 as identified on this consent sketch to lot 70 as identified as part 1 on this consent sketch, otherwise referred to as the benefiting lot. So this is the original proposal, just to show some context, as you will see in the next slide how we progressed over time. So in order to address concerns raised by town staff and nearby residents, the proposal was revised to reinstate the historic lots 69 and 70 of registered plan 820 with a 2-story single detached dwelling per lot with direct driveway access to and from Wood Avenue. So this is an overall reduction from 3 to 2 lots, which is shown here. So the conveyance of the portion of lot 69 to lot 70 will allow unimpeded vehicular access to and from Wood Avenue via the southwest corner in order to avoid conflict with above ground site servicing features existing at the end of Wood Avenue directly northwest of the subject lands. And it aligns with the limit of the improved road today. So as a result of this reconfiguration, vehicles seeking to access lot 70 can do so without disrupting the existing servicing features and permit access on the improved portion of the existing right-of-way. So this is a table just to show the previous site statistics and the variances required. When we proposed 3 individual dwellings, it resulted in the necessity to request relief from the zoning bylaw in the form of a minor variance for minimum lot area, side yard setbacks, and maximum height, as the original proposal contemplated building heights of 10 meters, which is 1 meter above the 9-meter maximum requirement. And then with the updated statistics, the table identifies, the site statistics as it relates to the updated proposal. And it is zoning compliant with respect to all provisions applicable to the site. So for example, the proposed building heights are now 6.84 meters, which is below the maximum height limit of 9 meters. As was mentioned by planning staff, township staff have confirmed that the lot frontages are to be measured on the side abutting Lake Couchiching, and therefore the frontages of the historic lots 69 and 70 will remain unchanged. And furthermore, a minor variance application is no longer required in this case. So I'll just skip ahead here. This is just the basement plan, the elevation from the front. So from Wood Avenue, the elevation, the rear of the building. So on the side of Couchiching, on the side of Lake Couchiching, and the side elevations, so facing north and south. I want to point out that windows are not being proposed, so that mitigates the potential for overlook or loss of privacy on adjacent lots. So in conclusion, it is our opinion that the requested consent for severance meets the requirements of Section 5124 of the Planning Act. And to close out, based on our civil engineer's analysis, the revised lot configuration is appropriate to ensure suitable servicing and access is achieved. And that is it for me. And I'll be here to answer any questions from the public if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think there is one person registered to speak on this application from the public. You can unmute your microphone, please. Did any of those people? Allison Wright, did you have any comments to make on this application?
Hi there. Yes, you're speaking with Allison Wright. My only question, I understand that they are meeting all of the requirements and all of the divisions have agreed that there is no issue. And my first concern is that we've had a cottage there for decades. And although it does allow for the size that meets all of your different subgroups, when snow is there, I do have concern with that entrance to lot 70. As well as just the overall wildlife. And I'm surprised that there were no issues, because now that you're considering the lakefront as their frontage, I'm really quite surprised that you're saying there are no concerns, because that whole area is going to change significantly of what is currently Lake Couchiching.
We also get your address for the record, please.
We are at 3759 Wood Avenue.
Thank you. I'm unsure if staff or the consultant would like to make comment on concerns. Brett?
I can briefly comment on the frontage along Lake Couchiching. So we did set back these buildings a significant amount from Lake Couchiching to reduce impact as much as possible. And between the sites and the actual lake, there is a bit of a buffer there as well. So this is essentially the furthest that we could set the buildings back from that side of the lot and still be zoning compliant on all sides of the building.
Thank you. Brad, did you have something to add to that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just have a couple points to add in there. In addition to the setback requirement of 20 meters from the high water mark of Lake Couchiching for the building and structures, there is also requirements under the zoning bylaw to maintain a vegetative buffer between the shoreline back from that, and that requirement of the zoning bylaw would continue to apply to these lots. So there would still need to be some vegetation retained there to ensure that buffer stays. With respect to snow storage, the applicants did identify some space on their site plan where snow could be accommodated. There was some areas adjacent to the driveways that snow could be placed for the winter time. But that is also one of those other technical matters that the Public Works Department would be looking at time of the entrance permit applications.
Okay, because that would be, the snow would be getting stored on other people's property. It's a limited area, and just when you look at the sketch that was provided and the overview of the lake, you can see that there's a significant area, and I'm not saying this current owner has done this, but the lake has been dredged and the lakefront has changed. So I would just like to ensure that it does not change anymore to affect those two properties.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments regarding this application? No, then I will declare the, public portion of the meeting closed. Do any members of the committee require any further clarification or wish to provide comments on the application? Oh, okay. Can I have a motion, please? Thank you. Moved by Member Kish and seconded by Member Bosseini that staff report D-23-013 be received, and that in the matter of consent application B-1822, the application be provisionally approved subject to the recommended conditions included as attachment 5 to staff report D-23-013. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Excuse me, would township staff introduce the next application, please?
Good evening, Chair, and those joining us this evening. The first new application on our agenda this evening is application for minor variance on the lands municipally recognized as 1669 Peninsula Point Road. Additional written correspondence has been received and already circulated to the committee from Paul and Lynn Robb, located at 1665 Peninsula Point Road. Although the members have already received this information, In summary, the Rob's concerns included encroachment of the deck towards the shoreline and potential precedent setting. Other concerns expressed related to aesthetics, lighting, and character of the shoreline and privacy between private properties. Again, these comments have already been circulated to the committee, but just summarizing them again for the minutes. So on the screen, this is a key map of the subject property. As noted, the subject property is recognized as 1669 Peninsula Point Road. The lands are located in the northeastern portion of the township along the western shoreline of the Severn River. This portion of the Severn River connects to the Sparrow Lake provincially significant wetland and is directly across from the district of Muskoka. The lands are currently developed with a single detached dwelling and a private single-story garage. The subject application this evening relates to an addition to an attached deck located at the front of the dwelling towards the shoreline. So all of this information is included in the staff report. However, I will summarize it again for my presentation this evening. The subject property is currently zoned Shoreline Residential 2 and is located within a shoreline residential area of the township within the Township of Severn official plan. As noted, this application relates to a minor variance for an addition to an attached deck. As described in the staff report, the addition has already been constructed. The subject addition to the deck was constructed in early 2022 without the benefit of a building permit. Subsequently, the applicant applied and received a building permit for the works. However, it was later determined that the as-constructed deck addition did not appear to reflect the approved site plan, having a non-complying front yard or shoreline setback. The applicants are seeking a minor variance for a reduced front yard or shoreline setback to accommodate the construction of that deck addition. As noted in Table 1, the requested setback is 12.04 meters from their front lot line or the shoreline. So as described in the staff report, applications for minor variances are evaluated under the provisions of the Planning Act and are required to meet additional prescribed policy as detailed within the Act. It's a different process than the construction of a structure that complies with zoning under the Ontario Building Code. So although the deck is existing, the minor variance application is required to be evaluated as a new proposal under the provisions of the Act. So on screen now is the proposed site plan depicting the location of the deck addition. Planning staff did reach out to the applicant to clarify if a reduced setback would be required to accommodate the construction of stairs to access the deck. However, a response from the applicant was not received at the time of notice or the preparation of this report. I can stay on that. As indicated on the site plan and described within the staff report, it is also noted that a second smaller dock or shoreline structure appears to have been located on the subject property and projects into the Trans-Severn Waterway. The township doesn't seem to have any records for the placement of this second unauthorized shoreline structure and would kindly request further information regarding that structure. An analysis of the proposal for conformity with the PPS provincial policy statement and the growth plan is included within the staff report and is prescribed by the Planning Act. Through the provisions of the PPS and the growth plan, additional shoreline protection and naturalization policies have been implemented by the province for development within 30 meters of the shoreline. This is the establishment of a vegetation protection zone within that first 30 meters. So the requested variance would seek to increase development within this 30-meter area. While there are exceptions for cases where the development would result in the restoration and protection of the vegetation protection zone to achieve the restoration of that area to the maximum extent possible, there is question if an alternative design with a shoreline restoration plan may better result in the achievement and satisfaction of that provincial policy than what is currently proposed. This is particularly accentuated by the Sparrow Lake PSW just north of the subject property, which this portion of the Severn River directly connects to. The township zoning bylaw does acknowledge the construction of unenclosed decks attached to recreational dwellings. It does provide some relief to allow decks that are lesser than 2 meters in height to project into that shoreline area, recognizing that is a common use of cottage properties. So in the Shoreline Residential 2 zone, this would allow a setback of 16.5 meters to the shoreline for the deck and the attached stairs. This provision in the zoning bylaw generally seeks to facilitate a better balance or buffer between development and the immediate shoreline. So sort of as mentioned, there is still question if an alternative proposal in closer conformity with the zoning bylaw may better result in the optimal restoration or protection of the shoreline. So on screen now are photos taken from a site inspection completed by planning staff. Pictured on the left is the subject deck. At the time of inspection, planning staff did confirm that stairs have been constructed, projecting past the footprint of the subject deck and further into the required yard. To the right of the screen is a photo captured on the side of the dwelling and the deck relative to the shoreline. Also pictured in this photo is the secondary shoreline structure for which additional information is requested. Shown on screen now is just a panorama photo of the front yard area of the shoreline property. So you can see the projection of the deck and the stairs towards the immediate shoreline area. So as described within a staff report, a full analysis could not be completed as further information is requested to demonstrate satisfaction to all applicable policy. I do just want to reiterate that the zoning bylaw does not intend to restrict the enjoyment of the front yard or shoreline area. There are additional provisions within the zoning bylaw that do offer alternative shoreline structure policies, which do include provisions for landscaping, an example being like a patio, or smaller scale residential freestanding decks to still facilitate that comfortable enjoyment of these areas. This information has been provided to the applicants. However, this is just a sort of a suggestion or a kind reminder that they might want to review that should they wish to consider an alternative option. So there were no comments or objections that have been received from the Public Works Department or Fire and Emergency Services. The Deputy Chief Building Official just notes that the construction must comply with the Ontario Building Code. But as indicated within the staff report, staff have provided 2 recommendations and motions for committee's consideration this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is the applicant or their agent present and have anything to add to staff's report? Thank you. Is any member of the public here to speak to this application?
Yes, I am. It's Lynn Lethang. I am the neighbor from the other side, 1671 Peninsula Point Road. I don't know if you're hearing me.
Yeah, we can hear you. What are your comments on the application?
I have not had any issues with privacy or lighting or crowding from this new deck that has been placed beside us. And as you can see from the pictures, that our property is very open to the next door property. It does not feel like they are too close to the water, and they are not doing anything to damage the shoreline from what we have seen or been part of. We enjoy having the neighbors there, and they use the waterfront as anyone does. They simply have the deck, and it's a cottage. So it doesn't feel like it's been pushed too far to us from what we're seeing, and we're not feeling any privacy issues occurring from the building of this deck.
Thank you for that. Is anyone else present who would like to speak to this application? There's no further questions or comments. I'll declare the public portion of this application is closed. Do any members of the committee require further clarification or wish to provide comment? Yes.
Question to the chair for staff. When does it stop being a cottage versus a home for the setbacks?
Through the chair to member Bossy. So there's nothing really that would regulate whether something's a cottage or someone's permanent residence. The setbacks for the projection into the shoreline and for decks apply to any shoreline property, whether it's a permanent residence or a cottage.
Just follow up, because you had mentioned there was a 3.5 meter if it was a cottage.
I can clarify that. That is projection for any attached deck to any structure, like associated accessory structure.
What was the setback in the building permit that was, or the whatever they submitted for the building permit.
Just continue to go back and forth.
Thank you through the chair to member Bossy. The building permit and the site plan that was submitted did comply with zoning, so that's why the building permit was issued. However, upon inspection by township officials, it was confirmed that the setbacks of the as constructed deck did not comply with the approved building permit plans.
So that was the 20 meters or the 16.5 that's
from my recollection, it was compliant. It was farther greater setback than 16.5.
Any other member have any comment for the application or question for clarification? Go ahead.
So on the map, it shows the existing shoreline, I guess through the chair to staff, sorry. It shows the existing shoreline 2022 and original shoreline 1997. So when we're looking at these minor variances, do we typically look at when we look at these setbacks when building a structure now, are we looking at the existing shoreline or the original? How does that typically work, or what is the rule?
Through the chair to member Kish. So it would be taken from the high water mark or the current shoreline, typically on the Trent Severn Waterway, those two align.
Any other questions from any member? So close. Good.
Through the chair to staff, I'm assuming to date we've heard nothing about the stairs that have been added to the existing deck. From my site visit today, it looked to be that they were about 2 meters further than the existing deck, give or take. I didn't actually have a tape measure. But to my understanding, we still have not received anything further on that or plans to ask for further relief toward that.
Through the chair to member Kish, that is correct. We haven't received any further correspondence from the applicant. Yes.
through the chair to the staff. If we deny the variance, what would be the next steps? At tear down, or does it go somewhere else?
Thank you, member Bossy. So after the decision is issued, there's the 20-day appeal period should the applicants choose to appeal the decision. Following that, I think it would be at the discretion of the chief building official and other township officials to enforce the building code and the zoning bylaw.
Last call. So staff state you have two motions prepared, one to deny and one to defer. I don't think this is a straw vote, but is there more appetite for deferral than there is denial to give them more time to come back with additional information and possibly other suggestions? Can we have a deferral motion, please?
I guess my only concern or question is, I would say, how responsive have the applicants been to requests for information thus far? To my understanding, we've asked for information on stairs. We've received none. We've asked for information on the additional dock that was added or structure by the water, and we've heard none. How likely is it that we actually receive something versus just delay something that is them just trying to utilize their deck for a longer period of time?
To the chair, to the member, the dock was something that was realized upon a site inspection and confirmed. However, planning staff reached out to the applicants in early June or mid-June to request information about the stairs, and haven't heard anything from the applicants probably since May.
Just a comment to the chair. I guess I look at this and I sort of feel deceived, didn't get the building permit, and then deceived again that the building permit was based on false information or incorrect information. And I just don't know about a deferral.
Steph? Thank you, Chair. If the committee do have concerns about the application being continue to be deferred and never brought back, you are able to impose a condition of a timeline about when the application would need to be brought back by.
And if I can just have a point of clarification, it's been a while since I've done this part of it. If we do vote on the deferral motion and it gets defeated, do we then go to the defeated motion and vote on that? If we have the deferral motion, say for instance, it fails, do we then read the defeated motion that staff have prepared already? Can I have whatever motion you decided on the screen, please?
Thank you, Chair. So if you vote on the deferral motion and it is defeated, to keep it a clean process, and just keep it organized, we can also vote on the denial motion as well.
I would propose then we discuss the deferral with a timeline. Then like a 2 month.
Mhm.
I'm out.
Okay.
But my suggestion would maybe be 1 month.
Okay, 1 month.
45 days. How about we call it even? Right in the middle.
Well, our next meeting.
By the next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
The only concern with deferring it to the next meeting is that there's a quick turnaround time to have the application recirculated if they do come back with a new proposal. So it might not be enough time to have the application brought back at the next meeting.
2 months. Can we have that as a condition added to the deferral motion? Can someone else read that for me? Those words are very tiny.
So through the chair to the committee, the motion as presented within the staff report would remain the same with the inclusion of the last line reading, and that a revised application be brought back for consideration by the September 2023 Committee of Adjustment meeting.
I guess, or what happens is, I guess you need to finish the thought that it'll be denied, that it'll be.
If something doesn't come back, then what happens?
Through the chair, staff can bring the application back to the September meeting for a decision.
Even if they haven't added anything, it would be the same application.
Oh, could we just re-look at the same application?
Yes.
Essentially
And make a different decision then. Mm-hmm.
I think that's spelled out.
Okay, so the motion would read as presented within the staff report with the now revised last and that statement. The application be brought back by the September 2023 Committee of Adjustment meeting for further consideration and decision.
Sounds good to me. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Can staff present the next application, please?
Thank you, Chair. The last application this evening is minor variance AO623 Dillon for lands located at 12302 County Road 16. Here we have a key map showing the subject property. It is located between County Road 16 and Highway 400, just north of Old Creamery Road, and just north of the settlement area of Coldwater, and actually just south of the settlement area of Featherton. Here we have the 2022 aerial imagery. You can see the existing dwelling located here, the existing shed in the rear yard here, along with some tent structures located in this corner of the property, and some boats stored on the property here. This application does propose the construction of a detached one-story private garage. The requested minor variances include an increased maximum size, an increased accessory and total lot coverage, as well as an increased maximum accessory building height. The applicant did previously apply to the Committee of Adjustment and received provisional approval in 2019 for similar requests, however, was unable to satisfy the conditions that the committee imposed within the required timelines. Therefore, the applicant has now chosen to reapply to the committee. This table summarizes the variances that are requested through this application, the first being an increased accessory building size. The bylaw would permit 75% of the floor area of the principal dwelling to a maximum of 110 square meters. The applicant is proposing a 115 square meter building, a maximum accessory building height of 5.5 meters, where 5 meters is normally permitted, a accessory building lot coverage of 8%, where 5% is permitted as of right by the bylaw, and an increased lot coverage of total lot coverage of 14%, where the bylaw normally permits 10. This is the site plan that the applicant submitted, just with some additional clarifications by staff. This building here is that existing dwelling. This is the existing shed located in the rear of the property. And this building here is the proposed garage located or proposed to be constructed kind of in the northwest corner of the property. The applicant has also identified the location of the septic system in this area. There was a comment from the building division with respect to that septic, which I will cover later in this presentation. This is the elevation drawings of the proposed garage. As you can see, it is just one story. There is no second story proposed in here. And then just the interior layout of the building with an overhead door at the front and a man door at the rear. Just some site photos of the subject property. This is standing on the driveway at County Road 16. You can see the existing dwelling located here, along with some mature vegetation in the front yard adjacent to the road allowance that will assist in buffering and screening that proposed garage from view at the road. This picture here is taken just standing at the kind of in this location here, looking into the rear yard of the property. You can see those existing tent structures that are located here. Those buildings would be required to be removed as a condition of this application. The applicant has advised that they do intend to remove them anyways, so we don't anticipate many issues there. These pictures, again, just a close-up of those tent structures and a picture looking into the rear corner of the property from the back of the dwelling to where that garage would be constructed. So as discussed within the staff report, there were some additional accessory buildings present on the lands. As discussed, a condition has been recommended to ensure the removal and to ensure compliance with the zoning bylaw. The proposed detached private one-story garage would continue to be accessory to the principal residential use of the lands, and staff are of the opinion that the lands would not become overdeveloped by the construction of this proposed garage. There were no objections to the application received from the clerk's office, Public Works, or Fire and Emergency Services. The building division did advise that while they have no objection to the proposed minor variance, the township has no records of the septic system on this property. So therefore, the applicant will be required to verify the location of the septic system prior to a building permit being issued. This may require the applicant to expose part of the system to confirm its placement or its location. And the building division did just note that the system as shown on the site plan did appear to be a bit small for the probable size of the system, but just more of a heads up to the applicant through that comment. So in summary on this application, the Planning and Development Department has no objections to the provisional approval of the minor variance subject to the recommended conditions. Those conditions are pretty standard, just that taxes are paid to date. The construction is in substantial compliance with the plans submitted with the application. The existing vegetation on the property be preserved and enhanced as much as possible, and also that the applicants enter into a demolition agreement to ensure the removal of those tent structures from the property. That may include the posting of securities to the satisfaction of the chief building official to ensure compliance with the zoning bylaw. So that concludes my presentation for this evening. The applicant is in attendance this evening and may wish to address the committee. Thank you.
Does the applicant have anything to add to staff's presentation?
Yeah.
If you can use the microphone so everyone listening can.
I really don't know. It's been there. I measured it all out. I really don't see anything changing. It works fine. I don't know what I can add to that. I was kind of surprised here today.
I think it's because there's no permit, so there's no record of it existing. So they just want to make sure that it does comply, but staff can correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the comment from the building division isn't so much to say that works are required to the septic system. It's more or less to just ensure that where you're saying the septic system is located is actually where it's located, so that when you construct the garage that you're meeting the appropriate setbacks to the system from the building.
From the building. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
All right. So they want me to expose it?
They may. When it comes time for your building permit application, you would be in touch with building staff and they would discuss with you what they would need to see.
Because you can see right clearly, like today, where it is. You know, it's green and it's square, and the rest of it's all steel wool. So I really don't. Okay, that's what we have to do. I don't think there's anything else more to add. Spencer, you have anything to say? No? Okay, I think that's it.
Thank you.
Turn it off.
Did anyone register from the public to speak to this application? No? Okay. So I'll declare the public portion of this application closed. Any members of the committee require further clarification or wish to provide any comment on the application? Okay, can I have a motion, please?
So my question through the chair, I'm assuming to staff, the shed that's on the property, I'm assuming that's also an accessory building. Does that get included within the lot coverage percentage along with the garage?
Through the chair to member Kish, yes, it would be included in the total lot coverage as well as the accessory structure lot coverage. So that that structure would be included.
Any other questions? I'll give you more than a second, I guess, this time. Thank you. So moved by member Bosseini and seconded by member Kish that staff report D 23-014 be received, and further that minor variance application A0623 be provisionally approved, subject to the conditions included as attachment 5 to staff report D 23-014. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And the next resolution, please. Moved by member Kish and seconded by member Bosseini that the Committee of Adjustment be adjourned at 7:25 p.m. on Tuesday, July 18th, 2023. All those in favor? That is also carried. Thank you.